What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Fans FC, episode 21. It's been a while since we've done this specific show, but we're back. We're now in the heat of the MLS playoffs. Now that it's coming back from international duty, everybody is going to resume. But yeah, how you feeling, Adam? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Nice little Thanksgiving week episode to do. So that's always fun, exciting.
Yep, it is the day before Thanksgiving. You know, sadly, well, I don't know, but I don't know if you remember, but like I think about what was it? I mean, I think it was just 2021 playoffs. They did a Thanksgiving Day MLS playoff game, and it was the highest rated playoff game ever. I think. Obviously, they left it on Fox, so a lot of people think it's because they had the football game and immediately transitioned over to the MLS game. But either way, I think that was definitely like a good move, and they should continue to do that because, look, man, like they still got the Fox deal, so why not? You know, but we'll see. But yeah, let's get into the bracket. So I don't know if you remember your predictions at all, but
most of them I do. Well, yeah,
so
for the most part.
We pretty much had the exact same first round, I want to say. And we pretty much were correct on everything except the Nashville game and the St. Louis game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I think that, and those are, to be fair, those are both two where it's not like super surprising.
Especially the Orlando Nashville.
That one too, but especially in my case, I think St. Louis versus Kansas City. Didn't think it was going to be so lopsided, but come on now, you can't be surprised. We both knew that St. Louis was going to run out of steam. The question was when. I thought it would be next round. But that's what happens. The playoffs. I think this is why we have the playoffs. Things get interesting. Is that might actually be the first time that a 8th seed has taken down a 1 in MLS history. I know the MLS hasn't been around that long, but am I right?
I'm not sure actually with that. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if it's happened before. Well, then again, it's always usually been 7 teams. It's never really been an 8th seed, except for I want to say the COVID year where they did the play-in as well. But there's never. But I know what you mean. The lowest seed take out a 1 seed. I want to say it's happened before, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm actually curious to see if it is or not. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was really surprised. I mean, St. Louis. I'm not St. Louis. Kansas City really like put a beating on St. Louis. It wasn't even close. Like I really thought, like I knew Kansas City coming into this playoff round, they're coming in a little hot. You know, they started off super slow in the beginning of the season. Then towards the end of the season, they really started to catch fire, especially as all their players are getting healthy. But I thought St. Louis was kind of in that same boat as well. They were starting to get all their players back. Klaus came back. Team was starting to flow really well. Obviously, number 1 seed in the West. And then just to get knocked out in the first round is pretty crazy. But I'm also not entirely surprised. But I do think at the end of the day, it is a disappointment. You would want to at least get out of that first round.
And it is confirmed, by the way, not to I hate to interrupt, but it is confirmed that was the only time in MLS history that an 8th seed has ever beaten a number 1 seed,
or at least like the lowest seed, right? Because I don't know how often they've had 8 seeds.
I wasn't gonna play semantics with ChatGPT right now. Okay, we're in the middle of a podcast. I just said 8th versus 1st. Has it happened? No, ever? No. Besides that, okay.
Man's is prompting over there. So yeah, so Kansas City moves on. They're gonna play Houston. Houston round was probably the most entertaining one, I would say. I'll pull it up here. To me, definitely the most entertaining matchup. I mean, it went to game 3. There's pretty much went to a shootout. It was
2
close,
games going to a shootout. Yeah, very close.
Yeah, 2 games going up to a shootout. It was the only one that was really interesting. And yeah, I mean, I had Houston coming out of it. We both did, and it seemed like to be Houston's game. I mean, at the end of the day, I knew this thing was going to come down to pretty much Houston just had a little bit more quality than Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake wasn't a
Yeah,
bad team, but from top to bottom, Houston was just they just had more talent all around, and that was going to get them the advantage over it. But it was
and
probably the
they
most
were the hotter
exciting.
team.
Yeah, that too.
They were
And no, I mean, I'll
arguably the
give you
hottest team. They were arguably the hottest team coming into the playoffs.
and then especially having the home field advantage was huge for them because by far being the best home team in the entire league, and it wasn't
Yes.
even close. So outside of Cincinnati, so best home team out of the West, let's say that. And yeah, I mean, getting that advantage was huge. But like to take nothing away from RSL, they were a super good team. They started to get on a roll towards the end as well. It seems like a lot of these teams were, just like that last couple months, but like towards the end of summer is just when things started to just
But
heat up and
Salt Lake made some good
battling.
signings. I think they'll be a team to watch next season.
Yeah, they're just going to progressively get better.
Yeah,
And
I
then we
like what
move
they've
on
been
to
doing there.
LAFC, which I think we both didn't have this matchup being really close at all. It was 5-2 first game, and then 1-0. It was pretty much over. Had a
And there
little bit
was
of
controversy.
controversy, yeah,
Yeah.
about running into
I'd
the
say
ref and
I'd
the
say
ref setting a pick.
all I'm gonna say two things on that. One, it's not as big of a deal because it's not like you really thought that Vancouver got like absolutely destroyed and they should have or like fucked over by that and they should have won. Nobody's really saying that. Maybe in that second game, but let's be real, I think LAFC would have gone through anyway. Second, the ref did fuck up. In that scenario, he absolutely has the authority to blow the play dead and then do a drop ball. Yeah, it's fucked up and they're losing an attack, but it's better than just saying, oops, sorry. Like sometimes there is incidental contact. Sometimes the ball does deflect off a referee, and that's fine. But when you're like straight up in the way and you just are a brick wall to the play, then
He sets a pick, man.
you're allowed to blow the whistle and just say, sorry, I fucked up, drop ball, it's their ball, so give it to them. And that's fine. But, it could have been a bigger deal. I hope, a teachable moment, I could say, is teachable moment.
I feel like MLS refereeing always has teachable moments. The
But that's a very
pro
specific
referees.
one. So you'd hope that, in the future they would kind of have a little meeting and just be like, this one's pretty obvious. Okay, guys, this happens in the future, do this.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, move on to the next one. We had Seattle versus Dallas. This one went to game 3, and I was a little surprised. I mean, Dallas was super dominant in game 2. Um, I didn't see them winning that 3-1, and then it came down pretty close in that final game in game 3. But Seattle ended up getting it out and winning the game. Seattle, it's another team slowly getting healthier. Nico Ladero saying it's going to be his final season over there. You're kind of seeing a changing guard in Seattle. You just have a feeling this is going to be the last year of like their last run. Rui Diaz is getting up there in age and having injury issues. Jordan Morris, how long do you want to keep on going with him? Nico Ladero, like I said, saying that he's pretty much gone. This is this might be. I don't know. The team's gonna. Predict the team's gonna look pretty different coming into next season. So this is going to be kind of like their last hoorah altogether, especially the team that pretty much collectively won Champions League
Yeah.
last year. So we'll see. I think they're definitely a beatable team. They're going in to face LAFC, which we could talk about predictions later, but that's going to be a really good matchup. But let's switch over to the East. We had Cincinnati versus Red Bulls, was also ended in a little bit of controversy with the reffing and the red card. And then a couple days later, saying that players went into the ref's locker room.
Player, and I forgot the name, but like apparently, yeah. There you go. I couldn't think of the name, but it's like they didn't say it, but like that's who it
Former
was.
U.S. men's national team star or prospect.
Which, by the
But
way,
yeah,
is
I mean,
disgusting. That should not happen. That's a bad look for the league. Players
oh,
should
that's
not be
terrible.
allowed anywhere near the referee room. Like the referees need to go into their room, that door closes, and that's fucking it. You are not getting in there. And there needs to
Don't
be
get me
security in front of that door too. Which, by the way, I've worked suites at Inter Miami. There is security in front of like we have security in front of like pretty much each corridor in the suite tunnel. And yes, there's a security guard in front of each locker room and the referee locker room.
damn.
So
Why you
not
giving the keys? Like you
no,
giving the blueprint to the stadium.
I'm just telling people you ain't getting you're not getting past.
Adam's about
Our
to start
security's
payday
too
3
good.
up in here.
Our security's too good. Yeah, it's on max difficulty, my boys. Our stadium nowadays. Yep.
Uh,
You're gonna need a full squad and silenced
I,
gear.
I will say too that look, I do think the red that he gave him for blowing kisses to the fan after he scored his penalty kick, I think that was a little much. I'm like, come on, a red card,
That is a
like
little much.
and now he's out for the next game. Coming into this game against Philly, like I don't know. I don't know if I'd give him a
Yeah,
card.
that's
Like, come on, like I don't. I think that's
yeah,
soft. I think,
because now it's a best of because we're back to one game.
but that's not excusing for what that person quote unquote did. You know what I mean? Like you said, you're not supposed. You don't go on. Like the game's over.
You don't
You
do that
made
shit. Yeah,
shit happens. But
yeah,
I
that's
will say
just
that was. I mean, come on. Like he
childish.
just went like he went like this to the fans, like and then to
Everybody
the away
fucking does that.
fans,
It's
to
already
the away fans. Like,
arguably every celebration is more toxic than that. Like you can make an
yeah,
argument for like so many toxic celebrations.
but I will say for the Red Bull side, the Red Bull to get it pretty close and even bring it to a shootout against Cincinnati at home was pretty impressive. But we all knew Cincinnati was going to be the better team, even if it went to Game 3. Going back to Cincinnati is going to be super tough. And yeah, we move on. Then we had Philly, New England. Also, I think should have been a better matchup if you didn't have all the controversy and
Yeah.
drama going into them. I tell you what, this past year of MLS, when you think about all the shit that went down, it has to be one of the most like crazy off the field shit that's happened. Like between like Messi and then all these like just everything off the field, Bruce Arena, and I think it's the most managers fired in a MLS season in MLS history. Um, it's been a wild year of all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think that's good. I as much as some of the stuff is bad, I think it's good to kind of have news. I guess. Hey, even bad news is still news at the end of the day. At least people gets people talking. But that series should have been better. Philly moved on. I don't think they look super dominant, but we'll see when they go up against Cincinnati in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like even though New England have all this controversy, it's not like talent on the field disappeared. They still got some talented players. So you can make an argument that even though Philly was always going to win that, it's not like they were going to look amazing because New England is a talented team despite all this BS.
Yeah. And then here goes to obviously probably the most exciting series, the most high scoring lethal series is Columbus at Atlanta, which is what we predicted. We two teams with, especially in Atlanta, that don't have great defense and two teams that have high powered offenses and strikers that are just tearing up the league with Cucho Hernandez and Giamakis and Thiago Almada and Diego God, not Diego. Almost said Diego Rossi, not, but whatever. Rossi and a plethora of other attacking weapons on both sides. And yeah, I mean, pretty much what we predicted. And then you go home at Columbus, and Columbus wins 4-2. So pretty exciting. That was the one I was pretty much watching the most, to be honest with you, because that was the one I thought was going to be the most entertaining.
Oh, and it definitely was. I mean, 8 goals scored for Columbus, 6 goals scored for Atlanta. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what we were saying. We were saying it's going to be high powered. And yeah, pushing it to 3 games also makes it fun.
So then we go to the final game.
But I think it was pretty obvious that, at least to me, that Columbus was going to win that. I didn't think, even though I knew it was going to be high scoring, I knew that Atlanta wasn't going to be enough to compete with Columbus.
Yeah, and then we go to the snooze fest that was Orlando, Nashville. What an absolute boring, just Oh, like what an awful
Boy, I
game
mean
to watch.
that's what Orlando's been doing all season, huh? I guess
And the
that's their
same thing with
plan.
Nashville. Just
Yeah.
Orlando's just plays sloppy, and then Nashville is not a high powered team, so they're always going to sit back and play defensive. It was just a snooze
Yeah,
fest of a
and then I
matchup.
think that turned out to bite Nashville in the butt because I really thought that they should have gone through. So I feel like with their style, if they had the home advantage, it would have been a lot different. But I think, going up against a two-seeded Orlando, the way they play, it was always going to be tough. So in hindsight, that was a tough one for them.
All right. So now that we've gone through this, I want to get your thoughts. And we've gone through every matchup in round one in the best of three. How I feel like we might be on the same page, but I'm curious of what you might think of this whole thing, this new format, this best of three in the first round with the play-in, the eight seed. Like, how do you feel about this new format?
All right, so
Here we go.
they could have done a good job with this. In theory, it sounds like a good idea, right? Like, you know what? When we get into the business end of shit, yeah, you get your one game, your semifinal, your conference final, then the MLS Cup. So in theory, it sounds good. But you're adding all these competitions. You got players that or teams that still got to play through a lot of these international breaks. You got all these fucking games. And then not only that, you have all this shit ton of games. Then by the time you get to this area of the schedule, your schedule's fucked up and there's hella time in between each round. And
3 weeks to be exact.
yeah,
3 weeks.
it's insane because now they want to fucking be careful with the international break because it's the fucking playoffs. It's the biggest like Bush League look. It's like, and it's a fuck you as well because it's the problems that everyone's known about. And then you get time to the playoffs and we're just witnessing it. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what we thought would happen. And you know what? This is just semantics, but you can also make an argument that this year was not needed because every result in the first leg ended up being the result of the series. And all of them. Kansas City won the first game. They also won the second game. Houston won the first game. They ended up winning the third game on penalties. LAFC won the first game. They moved on. Seattle won the first game. It went to 3, but they moved on. Cincinnati won the first game. They moved on. Philadelphia first game moved on. Columbus won the first game, moved on. Orlando moved on. Like, so you could argue if you're going to give them that home field advantage, that's it. You're giving them the home field advantage. You won. GG. And, if you wanted to make it really competitive, you'd do 2 legs, but they're never going to do that with an aggregate because
I
there's
don't know
no
if they'll go
point.
back.
They're never going to do that because there's no point of having home field advantage, which I can understand, but
Well, do you remember
that's
what
the
they used to do
real fair
was
way to do it.
Well, remember what they used to do was home on the 2 legs.
Well, that's fucking not
You don't
fair at
remember
all.
that?
I do, but I'm just saying that's just not fair. They should not do that.
Home on a 2-leg aggregate.
That is not fair.
Yeah. I'm pretty much with you. I think in a weird way, like obviously you want Miami and Messi in the playoffs, but I feel like looking back at this, it's probably best that not all the eyes and attention was on this because this just looked bad. It looked bad. You can realistically say out of the 8 games that went on, 2 were actually semi-entertaining. One was genuinely good, which was the Columbus and Atlanta. That was the only one that worked out to be
It was
good.
really good, yeah.
Houston
and Real Salt Lake
good.
was good. Yeah, that was a good one. And
Which were
then
the only
maybe
2 that
after
went
that, you could say Seattle, Dallas was all right.
Yeah, and that,
But not even
only
every game.
3 out of the 8
yeah.
went to game 3, and Seattle was honestly just a boring match. The
That's what I'm
thing
saying.
is, it's
Like a
just
couple of those games were watchable. Like I think the third one, the 1-0, if I remember
I
correctly,
just
because
felt
now all these
like
highlights that I've been watching fucking blur. That's another
yeah.
thing. Like I wasn't, I've been busy, so it's not like I'm sitting and watching every fucking game. Like, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19 games just for the fucking round one. Like, I don't have the time. I'm not gonna sit down and watch 19 games. I'm sorry, I just can't. Okay, I can't do that. So, when I'm going and watching all these highlights, it gets confusing, especially when I've been out of town for a couple days and not really looking at YouTube. And then I search, let's say I'm searching Houston versus Real Salt Lake highlights. Well, which game? Well, fuck, give me the first one first. It's it just gets, and I know that's like a first world problem, but it's like it's one of those things. It's just not everyone watches all the games. They want to watch the highlights. What if you were busy for a few days or whatever, you weren't in town, and then you're looking up highlights and you might like spoil it on accident because you click on game two and you're like, and they move on and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's just to me it's just stupid. And then especially the no aggregate thing, it just bothers me to the core. Like, and it's just some of these games, they just felt over. Like it just felt like the series was over. Like the LAFC Vancouver game,
Yeah,
dude,
after
they
that
beat
first
them
game, like, come on now.
5-2. I'm like, and it was one of those where it's like,
And
as
credit to
somebody who I
Vancouver
like to
because they
think,
fought they fought that second game, and that's why they had that controversy at the end. So you got to give them
but
credit.
look, if you lose 5-2 in the playoffs, you
But yeah, it
shouldn't
was
move on.
over. It was
We
over.
need to, they
Everybody
need
knew
to
that was over.
stop rewarding mediocrity. Stop. Like, just stop it. Like, it is so frustrating. There's nothing I hate more than rewarding mediocrity. Just like the play-in wild card, and just like this fucking nonsense with the best of three, with not even counting the aggregate. You can lose 6-0, come back, park the bus at home, and get a transition goal and win by 1-0, and then it's tied up. Like it's horseshit. It really is. It's so stupid. And then like even for someone like me who likes, I've considered myself an avid MLS fan. Like I know a lot about a lot of teams. I watch as much as I possibly can. It's the league I watch the most, honestly. And I lost interest. Like I was losing interest. Like I don't like I was just some of these games I just didn't care. Like I said, the LAFC Vancouver game too. I don't care. Like I just didn't. Like I mean, it was just one of those where it's just like I think you like what you're saying. I it feels like it just got super repetitive, and then you get to a game three, and then it's just I just personally don't think it worked out. I'm curious what the numbers look like, but just from the eyeball test, from what everybody's saying online, it doesn't seem like it was super well received. And there's only the only people I see that think it's success were people that work for MLS. Like those are the only people I looked at and saw that it said it was a success. I think it was bad. I don't think it was good. I think if you want more playoff games, I would rather see the 2-leg aggregate than this nonsense ever
Yeah.
again. I hope it never comes back. And then, like you said, on top of it, the scheduling fucking
Yeah,
sucked. It was
that's the worst part. Like I
terrible.
said, you could make it
We're in a
acceptable.
3-week break. You completely ruined all momentum you had because you had to watch out for this
Yeah.
international window. And you know what's even more dumb? Because they had to squeeze into which I mean, I think you can still get it done. But you had this condensed schedule at the end of the season where teams were playing like a game every 3 to 4 days. And then we get to the playoffs and there's a 3-week break in the middle of the playoffs. It's like, why was that not there? Like, why did they not just extend the regular season up into the November international window, and then start the playoffs after that? Because now you're losing all momentum. And unless you're diehard following it, like, you're going to lose people. Like, you're never, it is Bush League. It's Bush League.
Yeah.
Because how do you, like, what other league would do that? Like, imagine if the NBA was just like, you know what, we're going to stop. We went through the first round. We're going to stop for 3 weeks. Granted, they don't have like a governing body where players have to go play internationally, but work around it. Like,
Yeah, no, it's mid
stupid.
playoffs. It is the stupidest thing ever.
But I do want to get your thoughts on what do you think is the best format you've seen? The two leg aggregates like they did before with home and or best of three, which I'm assuming this isn't. You don't like this one, you want to see change, or the single one-off elimination.
If it's between those options, then I just say just fucking go all in and just keep it single elimination. There's too many games. The schedule's fucked up. Home and home is just a bit too lopsided in my opinion. Even though I think it's the most fair to have a 2-game aggregate, and they clearly can't manage these 3 games because it's just like I said, they could have made it acceptable. I'm not saying it's perfect because there's a lot of games, and having the playoff format the way it is, where you just go right into a single elimination again, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to please everybody, but they could have made it acceptable.
I don't understand what makes. I mean, obviously, I think a big part of it is Apple wants more playoff games, but I also think it's just odd because it's like, especially you have someone like Don Garber who comes from an NFL background. Soccer is it's not a series sport like basketball, hockey,
it's not.
And baseball is. It's not a series sport, and you can even say for those sports. Baseball, I think, does it the best. I think best of sevens in hockey and basketball for round 1s, 2s, and is too much. I think it's unnecessary.
Whoa, now you're saying that after the Panthers came back 3-1 down to
I agree,
Boston Bruins.
but
I'm just saying, man.
Look.
I'm a little biased, so I don't know.
No, but I don't think it should go to 7 games. I think baseball does it right with the best of 3 and the best of 5.
Period.
Well, yeah, but which is odd that they go shorter in the the playoff system. But I think that was either way. What I was trying to say is that single elimination is just the way to go. You got to make it must-watch television. Like when I was watching these best of series, I didn't feel like it was a must-watch. I felt like I could skip one, especially the ones I didn't care about. Like, and then you lose all momentum. You beat one team, you move to the next round. I think the next best option, obviously, I think single elimination is the best, but it seems like they're pretty hell bent on having more playoff games and having more teams have home games. It seems like the next best thing is, and what they might try out again, is the 2-leg aggregate series. I think they see the success of it from Champions League. I think they want to copy that. But the thing is, there's no way to necessarily copy that as a 1-for-1 because you have this regular season that you have to make it matter. Versus Champions League, there's all these different leagues coming together. So it's weird. I think obviously, I think scheduling is going to completely change and be so much better. They've been on the record saying that we're going to change the scheduling, especially after seeing what happened with all eyes on Messi and seeing the back-to-back games, Leagues Cup, and now with the expanded Champions Cup, there's going to be a lot of games this year. I mean, they're talking about pretty much if you're playing in North America, you're going to have about 55 to 60 games, which is a lot for over here. I mean, in Europe, they get that all the time, but you're starting to see that here, which I think is a little much personally, but I really hope they got to stop the Bush League shit. They got to fix the scheduling first and foremost. But I think if you're not going to do the single elim, the next best option is the best of 2, where best of 2 for round 1, not best of 2, my bad. The home and away leg, maybe for 4 and 5 seed and 3 and 6, you do home and away. And then, but the higher seed gets the advantage of having home last.
Or let them pick.
And then if you're 1 and 2 seed, you just get home. Like, that's the only thing I can think of.
I wouldn't be totally opposed to that, but then you still have people arguing like, well, we're 4. Oh, fucking. what should we share with a 5? It's like but it's stupid at this point. It's like
I mean, well, that's why the 4 gets
the playoffs
pick.
itself is the issue, if we're being honest, but that's just how it is.
I don't have a problem. Like I said, I like playoffs. I think it's too big.
Yeah, it's
I think
fun.
8 is too big.
It's just
I think
when it's not how the rest of the world operates, you're always going to be doing something different and trying different shit. And
yeah,
if the U.S. Open Cup actually, if they actually advertised it and made it matter to the point where people showing up to Inter Miami games don't come up to me and go, "Are they playing? What is this? Like, is the team actually playing a game today?" I'm like, "What?"
They just make shit more complicated than it should be.
If they made it so that the U.S. Open Cup is the knockout tournament that everyone's excited about and it's a big deal, and they schedule it in a way that they can still
but that's out of MLS hands, and I don't trust U.S. Soccer to actually make that a popular event. But the thing,
which is dumb.
Also, another issue they have to take into consideration that we haven't thought about. I mean, that we haven't talked about is now you're getting into this issue where teams who don't make the playoffs are in these long off seasons. Like our season ended in October, and the season's not going to start up until late February.
Yeah, that's why they had to do some random ass friendly.
So now it's going to be super long, which, look, people could have been playing during that. Well, I don't know. They could have led up to the November window and then maybe start after that. But I don't know. I think the best that makes the most sense is just a single elimination. It doesn't last long. You're talking about 3 weeks of playoffs. You're not leaving teams who don't make the playoffs so long with an off season, because I think that plays a factor. I mean, in soccer, you don't need these extremely long off seasons. You just don't. You need about a solid 2 months. I think run the game into December like they're doing. Start playoffs right before Thanksgiving like they're doing now. Play at Thanksgiving, then boom. Right after Thanksgiving, you play until like mid-December. People are going to say, oh, Canada and the Northeast. Like, look, I think December's fine. Obviously, I agree we shouldn't be playing games in Montreal in January and February. That is absurd. It's ridiculously cold, and it's just not possible. But you could play until mid-December.
Yeah, definitely.
I think like December 15th, like what the World Cup was. Like, I feel like that's not bad. I feel like obviously once you get into later December, then it gets like super cold.
Yeah.
But have teams use it to their advantage. I mean, look, you can make it work. They can do it. They do it in football, American football. So you can play into those late December games. But yeah, I think we're both on the same page with the single elimination. I think it's the best option, and you're not leaving teams without such a long offseason, and it's entertaining, must-watch television. But let's go into like our predictions for the semifinals. So I'm pretty much going to stay on course with what my bracket was. Because even the teams that I did pick incorrectly, which was Nashville and St. Louis, the teams I have advancing are still the teams that I think are going to advance. So I have Cincinnati.
Yeah, I agree.
Columbus. I do have LAFC, and then I have Houston.
Yeah, so I know I'm if I remember correctly, I think I had Seattle beating LAFC. Yeah, LAFC. I think after if I after knowing the results and seeing the first
your winner's
round,
done. You had Nashville winning the whole thing.
Well, that's fine. Whatever. That was that's why I said like that first round is their title, because I said if Nashville makes it past Orlando, then they're gonna win. Guess we'll never know how that would turn out. But I want to stick with Seattle, but definitely my brain wants to say LA after watching the first round and seeing like the two teams perform. But Seattle being that 2 seed, that could really be the deciding factor. So I'm going to stick with Seattle.
Okay, but we're pretty much on board with everything else. Yeah, Houston, Cincy, and Columbus.
Houston, Cincy, and Columbus.
All right, so we're just differing on. Yeah, I mean Seattle does have the home, but I like LAFC
Yeah.
still. Seattle just wasn't super
LAFC is the
convincing to
better
me.
team, and you're right. Seattle wasn't super convincing. So hindsight, if I was making the brackets again, I'd probably pick LAFC. But you know what? Because Seattle's the 2 seed and they do have the home advantage, I see why I picked it. It's not the dumbest thing in the world. It can happen, especially in a one leg game.
All right, well that's for our MLS talk right now. Let's hop over to the other side, talk a little Euro ball, and we're talking a little bit of Champions League right now. So Champions League is coming back now that everything club football in general is coming back. Can pretty much everybody's played their international window. Just a couple of games left, I believe, for some people. But yeah, man. So talk about the group of death. Dortmund.
Yes, we love talking about the group of death because not only is it the most interesting group, but it seems like every time that we record a new episode, there is just more to talk about. Um, so, I mean, Dortmund did what they needed to do, and they beat Newcastle on both occasions. So now they have the grip on the group right now. I mean, they're looking pretty good to move on. Now, obviously, it's not done yet. You got Milan with 5 points, PSG with 6 points, um, but
It's still anybody's game.
PSG just lost to Milan.
A
PSG
must
also
win for
lost.
Milan too.
PSG also lost to Newcastle, so it's like everybody's kind of been beating everybody. PSG beat Dortmund, and then there's some draws in there. Milan Newcastle 0-0. Dortmund and Milan also drew another one. So yeah, it's crazy. It's still anybody's group, but it's just as that's the thing. It's just as crazy and it's just as interesting as we wanted it to be. We were
Yeah, I'm
kind of
glad
thinking,
it.
yeah, it's the group. We were kind of thinking when these were first drawn that, hey, you know what? This is the group of death, but we still think like we can pin the two teams that are just better and the two teams that aren't going to get through. And yet it's still like, anybody's guess.
I
Anybody's
think
guess, especially
most
in all
people
these
had.
games.
I think most people had Dortmund not making it, but after seeing Newcastle start to implode and not play well, you're kind of onto something, Adam. You're the one person that was like, I see Newcastle getting last. I had Newcastle advancing with Milan, and I had PSG getting Europa League. But you might be onto something. Newcastle is. I don't want to say they look the. I don't know.
And I'm definitely a little lucky. I'm not going to take all the credit for it because they're dealing with injuries as well. They're not a healthy team,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's been hurting Newcastle a lot. And obviously, I can't predict that, so that's been helping me. But yeah, I mean, I just thought that they're not a team that's been in the Champions League for a while. They just got this money and they just got these new signings. They did have a good year, but they still had some holes, and you still felt that they're worse than X amount of teams in the league. And I just felt like the places they had to go to for Newcastle, those away days, those are three tough places to play. Newcastle, you're telling Newcastle, congrats, you guys finally made it to the Champions League, with the big boys. You're joining City and Arsenal and United as the England Champions League representatives. But you have to go to the San Siro, you have to go to PSG, and you have to fucking go to Dortmund and play against the fucking wall. That is tough.
which they already lost at. So now, yeah, you have two away games. So yeah, you got to play the
That's what
San
I was.
Siro, and you got to
That was
play
my
at the
argument. That was
Parc
my
du
argument. I
Prince.
was like, these away days for them are tough, and this is a tough group. And that's if you can't just go and at least win two of those, you're not getting through. And I couldn't see them winning at least two of those.
Yeah, and then talk about a little bit about Milan. Is that Milan was they were in a must win situation against PSG. They were playing back to back against PSG. They drew against Newcastle and Dortmund, which both of those should have been wins. They completely outplayed Newcastle, but they couldn't finish. And the same thing with Dortmund. And then they lose to PSG in a game where PSG just looked like the better team. That was the first Champions League game where they looked like the better team, but it also kind of coincided a lot what was going on in league play where they weren't playing up to snuff, not good enough, losing Loftus Cheek during a lot of that. And now they're back, but Pulisic is now hurt. So, and you're losing Chikwueze. So it's going to be tough. I'm curious to see how Milan ends up playing against Dortmund in this next game, especially at Dortmund. It's going to be tough. And now Rafa Leao I believe is out as well. So it's another team that's getting plagued with injuries and in the attack. So it's going to be a tough one for them. And now you can look back and like losing those two games, and those games you should have won. You should have beat Newcastle. You should have beat Dortmund. Now it's going to bite you in the ass because you just dropped 4 points that were now with the injuries you wish you had right now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it looks like, to me, it seems like PSG is going to end up winning this group. They've looked the most consistent. They've looked the best. I think Milan played to a certain level to end up beating them in this in the second game they went up against each other. But then again, Paris also lost pretty badly to Newcastle.
Yeah,
so that was the only game Newcastle. So yeah, I mean, everybody's pretty much traded for the most part, but man, I don't know. I think it's going to be really tough. I think Milan with the injuries is really going to hurt them, and they might stay in Europa League. PSG is the only team not the only team, but PSG is healthy and they're playing pretty well in the games that they've played in outside of the Newcastle game. They're probably going to end up winning this, and I think Dortmund might get through, but might get in second place because they're probably going to lose to PSG again. Because Dortmund playing at home against a beat up Milan team, even though Milan is the better team with those injuries and now being down players, they might actually win this game. And I'm someone who actually enjoys watching Milan. I'm kind of a semi-Milan fan. Like I root for them every time I watch them play. So it kind of hurts to say that they're going to probably lose that game against the wall. So man, it's crazy. I think this next week is going to be really entertaining. So
yeah, definitely don't want to go into too many predictions yet because there's still 2 games left.
I don't think anybody can clinch still, even after this.
Yeah,
next week.
there's 2 games left. Yeah, I think the only one.
No, my bad. Dortmund can clinch.
Bayern and Madrid, I'm pretty sure can.
No, a lot of teams clinch. I'm talking about in this group specifically. I think Dortmund, if they win, they clinch. Dortmund wins, they get 10 points. They're pretty much in. Oh, yeah. If Dortmund wins and then Newcastle loses against PSG, then they're in. So, but we'll see if that happens. Yeah. As for the teams that have qualified, it is City. It is
Bayern.
No, Bayern. Yeah, Bayern, City,
Madrid, Real Madrid.
Yeah, Madrid and Inter. Inter, Sociedad, and then Madrid. Arsenal hasn't clinched yet, and that's pretty much it. So you have Bayern, Madrid, Sociedad, Inter, and City, pretty much that are the only ones that are in there. So, a couple more important games. I don't know if you want to talk about United potentially getting exited, getting grouped.
It's just so funny. I just love talking about it. It was just great. Now they gotta go to Galatasaray, which is really that's always fun. They're a rowdy group of people, those Istanbul folks. But my God, that Copenhagen game was just so fucking funny. it starts out, pretty good for United. It was a third-minute goal from Hoyland. I can never pronounce his name correct. Hoyland, whatever. Fucking Jesus Christ, Rasmus. That's his first name. I'll just call him Rasmus. Scores, and then he also scores in the 28th minute. So they're up 2-0. Then Copenhagen gets one back. Now it's 2-1. Then they got a penalty right before halftime. So it's 2-2. And then Manchester United get another penalty in the second half. So Bruno Fernandes scores it in the 69th minute. And then Copenhagen scores in the 83rd and the 87th minute, and they win. Not just steal the tie, but they win. So, I mean, yeah, United, I mean, they're fucking struggling right now. Not just
it's embarrassing. It's not even
not
struggling.
just in the Champions League, but also, I mean, yeah, they've been doing all right in the league, but all right is not good enough. You know, they've been they need to be better, and they are 7 wins, 5 losses, a -3 goal differential. But my
by United standards, that's not good.
It's not good. But my only question is, do you think that they stick with Ten Hag for a while, or you think that if this continues the way it is, they're not even going to let him see at the end of the season?
If he gets grouped, he's out. If they don't make it out of the Champions League, I think it comes down to Champions League. I think if they get embarrassed again by Galatasaray, and well, did they play Bayern twice, right? Already? No, they played Copenhagen twice. All right, so they still have Bayern to play, and they have Galatasaray to play. So you were hoping, if you're a United fan, that you would get that Copenhagen win. You were hoping, because
that would make it so much easier.
Because you could pretty much guarantee that Bayern, they're losing the Bayern game. Like, that's almost like in the bag. So now you're hoping that you can beat a Galatasaray team away to advance. That's pretty much the game. You lose that Galatasaray game, you're definitely out. Like, I don't even think you have a chance. You could probably make Europa League. But I don't know, man. Like, Ten Hag's definitely gone if they don't advance. I would even say, even if he goes to Europa League, they might keep him for Europa League
just to see what he does. See if he can win it. That might be a saving grace, but it's tough.
Unless they really start dropping the league. If they really start dropping the league, then he's gone. But I think the fastest way he's out is if they get completely eliminated and get last place against a group like that. Like, that's just, you shouldn't be losing to Copenhagen. You shouldn't be losing to Galatasaray. Look, Galatasaray is a great team, but like, this is fucking Man United. Like, come on. Like, you should be an easy favorite to advance at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty much with him. But United continues to plummet. I don't know how they get out of this, honestly. It seems like the only way out is if they fire him. It seems like you're going to get the same old, barely getting by, losing games that you shouldn't be losing. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're a United fan, it's tough right now because you don't see a way out. Like, there's no like injured player that's going to come back and change the team and turn the season around. There's nobody on that team. Like, so we'll see with them. I mean, what do you think? What do you think he's going to get canned or sacked? What do you think it takes?
I think I would agree. I think if they come last in the group in Champions League, then I don't know if they'll do it immediately, but I think that will be the deciding factor. I think after that they're gonna start searching and calling people, because I just don't see how it'll improve at this point.
Yeah, I mean, what else could he do? Like, I mean, we've seen it. We were led to believe that Ronaldo was the issue, that this person was the issue. Everybody else was the issue except Ten Hag.
Man, he's
Ten Hag's
getting
the
these
last one
players now,
standing.
and it's not helping.
He's the last one standing. And guess what? They're still ass. So unless coming out of this international window, they turn things up, which I don't see happening, because really there's no outside of Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, who Rashford's been making mistakes. They don't have serious talent to compete with the best. The best that the Champions League has the offer, the best that even the top of the Premier League has the offer. They just don't have the talent top to bottom. So I don't see how they get out of it. It's going to be a long project. They need somebody who knows what they're doing. And obviously United just hasn't been the same since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And I just feel like they've lost. They had that stability for so long, and it's just been all over the place ever since he disappeared. So I don't know, man. But speaking of we'll stay in the Premier League, and the recent news.
And one of the biggest stories of the week, if we're being really honest,
drops 10 points from the table after the financial fair play and all that stuff, which it seems like they're not the only one. Right now, they're the only one that has a legitimate ruling. Everybody else seems to still be under investigation. Obviously, the City stuff that happened last year, which they're currently still figuring out, supposedly, and they're not anticipating the City stuff to be figured out until potentially 2025. I've heard. I was watching an expert on this, so I don't know the nitty-gritty.
Extremely complicated.
But from what I understand, Everton, I believe, has one or a couple violations. So it was pretty they were able to get through this a lot quicker because of those one violations, because there wasn't many violations. The whole City issue is around 150 violations or something like that. So they have to go through each one of those to figure that before they can determine a ruling. That's what I've learned from the talking heads on the television. That's what they're saying. I don't know the details of it. And then there's potentially other teams out there. I don't know if you know the other teams. I don't know, or if they've even announced it, that they also could be potentially
Chelsea
as well. Oh, Chelsea. Yeah, how could I forget? Yeah. But there was a couple more too. It was a few
There
teams.
are, but the Chelsea and City are the two.
There's supposedly a few teams, but Chelsea and City, obviously City with last year. But I mean, dude, what'd you expect? I mean, you're telling me is anybody? Well, I guess if you're an Everton fan, you'd be shocked because Everton's been terrible. They're breaking these financial rules and they're still losing.
Yeah.
City, who like City and Chelsea, those are like obvious. Like these guys are spending money out of the fucking wazoo. Is anybody surprised that they're having financial fair play issues? So Everton, that 10 points, man. So is it official? Is it like officially going to happen? I haven't been following it super closely.
They have officially lost the 10 points.
Okay.
They are in 19th place now. They are appealing it, and they may have a case. They may. It's like I said, this stuff is complicated. The specifics really are. So for those not familiar, again, this is a very, very oversimplified version of it, but in a 3-year period, you cannot lose up to 105 million pounds or 130 million dollars as like a loss, like profit loss. And the reason they do that is because they just don't want they want teams to be sustainable as a business. They don't want people just to be throwing money around just because they can, while other teams are trying to actually make a profit and like be sustainable. Not fair. So that's the rules that they come up with. Everton were found to be 19.5 million over the limit. They say they have a case because they had a difference of opinion based on their new stadium that they're building right now on how the loans should be accounted for in the bookkeeping. They also said the impact of COVID-19 affected the ability to sell players in the market. Also, a big factor was suspending multiple sponsorship agreements with companies linked to sanctioned oligarchs of Russia after the Ukrainian invasion. So there's some things out there that could get them off the hook. And then people say, well, if if that's all you need to lose for it to be FFP, then why the fuck are City and Chelsea and those teams, why do they get away with it? Again, this is oversimplified, but in City's case, let's say they decide to spend $200 million on a player and they know they're not going to make that money back off of anything really. So what do? Their owner, who's also just so happens to be the executive on the chair of the board of Etihad, will sign a sponsorship deal for $200 million and give it to City. So basically, it's a fancy way of just giving money to yourself. But then because it's
Well,
a company, you're like, oh, that's our profit, that's our sponsorship. So they end up not losing. In their books, they never are going to show that they lost over 105 million pounds.
yeah,
Because
and
that's just how
and
they
that's the
do it.
thing.
And that's why it's so complicated. And that's why as you said earlier, it's going to take, up to possibly 2025 for the City case to have a decision, because City has some serious lawyers, and this is they'll fuck around with the books. They'll pull all kinds of gymnastics. Um, so it's hard to see where this is going to go. The only reaction that I'm getting really from the internet is, if this sticks, then Chelsea teams like Chelsea and City will get like in trouble, and it won't be a 10-point deduction. They're like, if this Everton sticks and they can actually go through all this legal, BS and get to the final decision for teams like Chelsea and City, they're like, it could be so bad that they'll relegate them.
Or whatever other team we don't
Well,
know
yeah,
could I
exactly.
mean, who know?
Exactly.
I
But
mean,
like relegation is literally on the
look, there's
cards.
nothing linked with Newcastle, but like that's a team that you could potentially see might have issues like
Well, yeah,
that.
they're a new one now that they're, owned by a country. That's another good example. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said too, like the city thing is not over. Some people think because that city thing has so many violations that they're trying to get them on. Like I said, like Everton, I think it was like one or two, and the one being the one you mentioned, versus like there's supposedly 150 violations for the city stuff. I don't know what the Chelsea, but that's what I heard. But if this sticks, Everton gets deducted the 10 points. Do they get relegated? I mean, this is a team that's already struggling, already was on the verge of relegation last season, looking like it for this season, even though the bottom is pretty bad in the Premier League, like Sheffield United, Burnley, Luton Town. Those are really bad teams. And it looked like Everton was probably going to get away with one. But if it sticks, can they claw out of this potentially?
I mean, if their appeals are reasonable, I mean, how much of this money is tied up in the stadium?
So
Another
I'm talking
thing
about
that I was
purely a sporting aspect. Say they lose the 10 points, is the team good enough to stay in the Premier League and not get relegated?
Oh, I actually this year for Everton, I think is they possibly got the luckiest year for this to happen, because
Yeah,
there
these teams are
are
terrible.
the three teams that are surrounding them are way worse than Everton. You got Luton Town, Sheffield United, and Burnley, all with one win. Burnley's one win, one draw, and 10 losses. Sheffield, one win, two draws, nine losses. Luton with
And
one
Bournemouth
win,
only has
three
two
draws.
wins.
And yeah, and then you got Burn with two wins, three draws, and seven losses. So Everton are going to be fine. This is the
If
they've
this
had some
happened
close
last
calls.
year,
If this happened last year, well, no shit, they'd be out. They barely
that'd be
escaped
fucked.
the past two seasons. They barely escaped. So if this happened in any of those past two seasons, they're in the championship. This
Yeah,
year
like Leeds.
they'll be fine.
Leeds is better. Leeds is a
There
better
is just
team than all
there's
three of
just
these guys.
absolutely no doubt in my mind that Everton are going to stay up this year, even with this, and that's crazy considering the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I was saying. It's like when you have Burnley and Luton Town and Bournemouth and
But these teams aren't usually this bad. It's just they're lucky that they are
Sheffield.
this year. Like you remember, if these teams were good enough at the bottom to make it tough for Everton to the point where it was coming down to
Yeah,
the
but I'm talking
wire for
about
them.
now. Like these teams are
No,
atrocious.
but
Like
that's what I'm saying. Like it's not
Burnley
it,
minus 21. Like
but that's what
Sheffield
but
minus.
my point is
Yeah.
that it's not usually like this. You usually have like a team like a Burnley at the bottom who's just completely out of their depth, but you don't really see three other teams that are kind of with them. Those are the types of teams that they'll get a bunch of draws. Like that's why they don't like, yeah, they might not have a bunch of losses, but they draw a lot. And, they come up with the odd win here or there. That's why they say, a good
Well,
target
look,
for teams to
I,
avoid relegation. If you want to confirm, if you're a team in the bottom half of the Premier League and you want to make sure that you don't get relegated, you need to aim for 40 points.
no, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, look, they were 2
Which is
points
crazy.
away
You think
from.
about it, these
They're
teams getting relegated and have 30 points a lot of the time. That's
well,
not bad considering how like rough these seasons are. They pick up their points. And that's why like it matters. Every win for these bottom teams is huge. Like if Burnley,
well.
they're playing West Ham next. If they win that game, they go from 4 points to 7 points. And let's say Sheffield and Luton lose. Now they've just jumped over all of them.
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like, I think last year's was a tougher relegation. I think those were better teams, like Leicester City, uh, Leeds, Southampton. Like those are better teams than Burnley, Sheffield, and Luton Town. Like in general, I mean, like Leicester was like that's a perennial Premier League team usually for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been in the Premier League for a while. Same thing with Leeds. Like they're lucky they don't have those teams in there. I think the fact that you have a Luton Town and the fact that Burnley is so atrocious, like you're just they are lucky. So yeah, I think even with the 10 points, they might get out of it. It's almost like they should be fine.
Yeah. I don't
But
see I don't see how they would struggle. But it was nonetheless a big story, very interesting, and I'm sure this is the first of many sanctions to be dished out because the Premier League is they like to do this kind of shit. So we'll see what
I did
happens.
want to ask you because obviously just recently they just voted on if how do I word it about the loaning out players to the same ownership groups and what was it 7 teams voted against it or something like that. It was a 12-7 vote pretty much. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I mean, I have not read that story, so I don't know.
So basically all the Premier League owners like they held a vote on whether teams should be able to loan out players to affiliated ownership groups or like owners like within the same ownership groups, like basically City Group for example. And there was a big vote about like whether people oppose it or were for it. And I think about 12 teams were against I don't know. I can't word it right. But anyway, we'll talk about it. It was like a small thing. I wasn't sure if you knew much about it, but yeah.
That'd be
I don't know.
interesting to read up on. Maybe if it's worth it, we could talk about it next time.
Yeah. But anyways, that is the end of episode 21. I want to thank everybody for making it and listening to the end. If you made it this far, we'll be back next week while the actual next round of MLS started. It's been a long wait, but we'll see. We'll finally get some playoff action back and also club football, Champions League, everything. We'll be there to talk about it next week. Any final thoughts, Adam?
I think that covers it. A 3-week break is long enough. We've talked about this already, but Jesus Christ, let's get these second rounds of playoffs over with.
Episode 21. Thanks, guys, for coming out. You know where to find us. See you guys next week.